We live in a world where love sits at the very core of our existence. It shapes how we see ourselves and others, driving us to seek connection, companionship, and a future with someone who feels like home. Deep down, our biology pushes us to find partners, to build families, and to create lasting bonds that give life meaning. Over time, the avenues to finding each other have multiplied. From chance encounters to online connections, technology has opened doors that never existed before. Yet, with every new way to meet, there's a growing question. How much of what we put on display is who we really are? And how much of what we put on display is who we want people to think we are? It takes time, sometimes months or even years, to truly know someone. But the digital age has accelerated connections, sometimes blurring the line between genuine intimacy and illusion. Today, it is estimated that nearly 1 in 10 people have been catfished. These stories of deception aren't just about lost love. They reveal a darker side of trust. When desire and vulnerability meet manipulation and greed, the consequences can be devastating, even deadly. It's a haunting truth. The deeper the desire for connection, the easier it is for deception to take root. This is Watch Her Cook.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cassie.
And I'm Danielle.
Welcome back to Watch Her Cook, a podcast dedicated to sharing the incredible lives of women, some who have taken their power back and some who have made gruesome headlines throughout history.
And today's story definitely falls into that latter bucket because I think this is the first episode that we've done where we are going to cover a woman who is known throughout history for not the best of reasons.
Yeah, we've had some like criminal enterprises on, but this is probably as dark as it gets in the true crime murder category.
For sure. Today, we're going to be talking about one of America's most prolific female serial killers, and her name was Belle Gunness. At first glance, Belle Gunness was just another widow making a life in America. But those who came too close learned the truth too late. Her farm was a place of no return. With charm, deception, and cold-blooded precision, Belle racked up thousands of dollars preying on the lonely and the hopeful, until a fire at her home exposed the horrifying truth buried beneath the soil.
That opener you just read already has me hooked on the entire story.
There's always a farm, okay, with bodies in it.
All farms have bodies.
Some of them are human, and she might be the OG. I mean, I am a true crime fan, for sure. And I feel like a lot of true crime stories reveal that people bury the bodies of their victims on their own property. And a lot of them just happen to be on farms because farms have significant amounts of property. But it's just like, God, just in your own backyard?
Like, that's ballsy.
What are you doing? You know?
I guess no one's going to be there digging around
until they do.
Until they do. That's right. Well, Belle Gunness was born as Brynhild Paulstatter Sturseth on November 11th, 1859 in Selbu, Norway. She was the youngest of 8 children and grew up on a small farm. Life in 19th century Norway was unforgiving, especially for families like Belle's. Her father was a stonemason, and she worked on a farm as a maid. The country was slow to industrialize, and most rural families made their living working on small subsistence farms, often battling poverty, limited opportunity, and a harsh climate.
Her story starts with an alleged incident that took place in 1877. According to local accounts, Belle found herself pregnant by a wealthy boy when she was around 17. While attending a country dance, the boy pulled her into a quiet area where he reportedly kicked her in the abdomen, causing her to miscarry. The boy was never prosecuted, but those who knew her later claimed that Belle was never the same after the attack. Her demeanor hardened and her outlook darkened. Ironically, or perhaps fatefully, her attacker passed away shortly after, reportedly from stomach cancer. The following year, Belle took a job as a servant on a large family farm. Over 3 years, she saved enough money to emigrate to America, a path many impoverished Norwegians took during that time.
And a villain was born. You know, when you look for the villain origin story,
That's it.
there it is. Like, started as a normal girl, ended as a villain because of, I would bet, this incident. In 1881, following her sister Nellie's lead, Belle set out to Chicago to start a new life. When she arrived, she changed her name from Brynhild to Belle Peterson, something that was more American sounding. Belle lived with Nellie and her brother-in-law, becoming a domestic servant before quitting and taking a job in a butcher shop cutting up animal carcasses. Even from this time, Nellie described Belle as very money hungry.
In 1884, she met Mads Ditlev Anton Sorensen, a department store watchman. Shortly after, the two married and she became Belle Sorensen. Records show that the couple had 4 children together: Caroline, Axel, Myrtle, and Lucy, though it's uncertain if they were biological or adopted. That being said, we do know that they had one additional daughter, Jenny Olsen, who was adopted from a dying mother. Tragically, 2 of the children, Caroline and Axel, died during infancy. It's alleged that Caroline's death was a result of acute colitis, which refers to inflammation of the colon or large intestine, an illness that has very similar symptoms to many poisonings. And let's just keep that for later. Just pin that.
Yeah, note that.
Axel had hydrocephalus, which describes water in the brain. Conveniently, both children had life insurance policies, which Belle would later cash out on.
Also note that.
Mm-hmm.
Together, Belle and Mads opened a confectionery store selling candy, tobacco, newspapers, and stationery, but the business struggled. Only a year after opening, the store caught fire. Belle claimed it was due to an oil lamp malfunction, but no lamp was ever found in the ruins. She was suspected of arson, but she got away with it and was paid a lump sum by the insurance company. It was around this time that Belle seemed to realize just how easy it was to fool these insurance companies and convince Mads to enroll in a better insurance plan.
About 2 years later, on July 30th, 1900, Mads was found dead in their home under suspiciously convenient circumstances. When Belle was questioned, she claimed he had returned home from work with a headache and that she had given him quinine powder, a common remedy at the time. She left to make dinner, but when she returned, Mads was unconscious. The attending physician was immediately suspicious and suspected strychnine poisoning, a deadly pesticide. He asked to see the powder's packaging, but Belle had already disposed of it in the fire. The family's regular doctor, who had been treating Mads for an enlarged heart, attributed his death to heart failure and no autopsy was performed.
Ironically, on the day of Mads' death, he was in between 2 insurance policies. He died on the very single day that his old life insurance policy expired and the new one took effect, resulting in an overlap. Belle received anywhere between $5,000 and $8,500, equivalent to approximately $190,000 to $323,000 today, which of course was a small fortune at the time. For the record, years later, neighbors recalled seeing Mads looking perfectly healthy on the porch just hours before his sudden death.
With cash in her pocket, Belle packed up her daughters and relocated to LaPorte, Indiana, where she bought a 48-acre farm ready to begin the next, deadliest chapter of her life. And what are the odds that single day? I mean, I guess the odds are 1 in 365.
But what are the odds?
What are they?
That would happen on that day when he has 2 insurance policies on a day where he seems very healthy and he just
drops dead when she happens to just be out really quick.
Yeah, and she admittedly gave him something, but she said it was something else.
And she's been surrounded already with some other suspicious deaths of her children. So things aren't looking great for Belle.
Things aren't looking great, I would say. Do you think it's weird that she works in a butcher shop?
No, I don't like that. Like, it's hard when villains or people who end up being the villains in stories do have that background, but so many people work in butcher shops and
that are normal.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't like that correlation being the reason why somebody is the way they are. Like, it's just a profession.
Yeah. I don't find it the reason for the way she is, but I do wonder if she got expertise and intel working as a butcher.
I think that's certainly a factor for sure. Whether it be clearly animal anatomy is different than human anatomy, but there are certain things that I'm sure butchers can do to a body that can only be learned in that industry. So
Right.
I think that is valid. But as far as just like, and she worked at a butcher shop, she's got to be. That explains so much. Like, I don't like that.
Totally fair. I don't think your job necessarily explains who you are.
But I do think that a traumatic incident such as the incident, and we did say allegedly because it's not confirmed, but if that did happen with the boy attacking her and kicking her in the stomach, which caused a miscarry, like that incident probably had something to do with what she ends up doing later to men in particular. Just a guess.
I mean, her victims are men and children, which are the 2 points of her trauma.
Right. So going back to Belle, once she arrived in LaPorte, she got reacquainted with Peter Gunness, a fellow Norwegian immigrant, widower, and a professional butcher who was raising 2 young daughters on his own. Some sources suggest that Peter had rented a room in Belle's home years earlier and that Belle visited him in Minneapolis to pursue him. He eventually moved to LaPorte and the two got married on April 1st, 1902. And this is how Belle came to be known as Belle Gunness.
But just a few weeks into their marriage, tragedy struck. One of Peter's young daughters died suddenly while under Belle's care. Belle claimed the little girl had accidentally swallowed lye, a harsh cleaning chemical that can be fatal. The case was dismissed by authorities, but 8 months later, Peter turned up dead too. Belle told investigators that a sausage grinder had fallen off a high shelf in their kitchen, and its iron auger, which is the drill-looking piece of the grinder, had fallen onto Peter's head. She added that a pot of brine simmering on the stove had also fallen onto his neck.
Feels very Final Destination.
Yeah, all of these things coming together
in just the right way.
What are the odds?
Neighbors were skeptical, as are we. Peter was a seasoned butcher and an experienced hog farmer. No one could picture him having such a clumsy accident. Suspicion deepened when Belle's adopted daughter, Jenny, supposedly confided in a classmate saying something to the effect of, quote, "My mama killed my papa. She hit him with a meat cleaver and he died. Don't tell a soul."
I mean, that's exactly what I thought she did.
I mean, that's exactly what it seems like she did.
Jenny was brought before the coroner's jury, but denied the comment. Ultimately, Belle got away with it and collected another insurance payout of $3,000, which is a sum worth approximately $111,000 today. Not long after, Belle told Jenny to let her friends know she would be attending school in Los Angeles. Then Jenny disappeared and she was never seen again.
It feels like she's not even really trying to cover up.
Very loosely. Like, tell your friends you're going for a trip.
Yeah. Tale as old as time.
On average, you'll have to wait 31 days to see an OBGYN. And if you're dealing with an infection or outbreak, you know you need care fast. That's where Wisp comes in. Connect with a U.S. licensed provider online and pick up safe, effective treatment at your local pharmacy that same day. Plus, get birth control and more delivered in all 50 states. Take control with comprehensive sexual and reproductive care, all from your phone. Wisp. That's HelloWisp.com. The waiting room can wait.
Meta AI is the personal AI to help you with whatever you need. Plus, it meets you where you are. Not only is Meta AI now an app, but it's also on the apps you already know and love. Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Messenger. Plus the Ray-Ban Meta glasses. It's easy to access wherever you are. So whether you're talking or texting, Meta AI is convenient to use throughout your day. Experience our newest AI that's tailored to you by downloading the Meta AI app. Try the Meta AI app today on the Apple App Store and Google Play.
In 1905, Belle wanted to expand her reach. So she began placing ads in Norwegian American newspapers, especially the Scandinavian, seeking a farmhand to help with chores around her property. This marked the chilling start of her notorious killing spree. One of her earliest known victims was Henry Gerholt, a man from Wisconsin. After arriving in LaPorte, Henry sent a letter back home reassuring his family that he was settling in well he was in good health, and even asked them to send seed potatoes for planting. But after this letter, all contact was lost. When his family reached out to Belle for answers, she told them that Henry had left with horse traders heading to Chicago. However, his trunk containing all of his personal belongings and his fur coat was mysteriously left behind on Belle's property.
He left with horse traders with none of his belongings.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. Like, totally, Belle, we believe you. Not long after, Belle began placing ads in the Lonely Hearts section of those same Norwegian American newspapers, specifically targeting Norwegian immigrants seeking a relationship or marriage. The Lonely Hearts column were dating ads that had gained popularity in the early 1900s, especially for immigrants longing for community or love in a new country. It's kind of, knowing that too, the early 1900s, there was still like Tinder.
Yeah, Tinder on paper.
Yeah, Tinder's always existed. One of Belle's ads read, quote, "Personal, comely widow who owns large farm in one of the finest districts in LaPorte County, Indiana, desires to make the acquaintance to a gentleman equally well provided with views of joining fortunes. No replies by letter considered unless sender is willing to follow answers with a personal visit. Triflers need not apply." And several men responded. Also, I love how she just blatantly states looking for men with money to join fortunes.
Yeah. And we had to look up what comely meant before this, just because what is that?
Yeah.
And the definition is pleasant to look at, attractive, typically used for a woman.
She's like, I'm hot, I'm rich, I own property, come give me your money.
And tons of men were like, sure.
Sounds great.
It feels kind of like nothing's changed.
I mean, it's a tale as old as time, I guess.
Her next victim was John Moe from Elbow Lake, Minnesota. He arrived in LaPorte with $1,000 to pay off Belle's mortgage and introduced himself to her neighbors as Belle's partner.
That's how I want men to show up at my house.
It's like, I come bearing gifts.
I come bearing your mortgage payment.
Belle's story, however, was a bit different. She introduced John as her cousin.
Oh, no.
Ouch.
Ouch. Friend zoned after you paid off her mortgage.
Not even friend zoned. It's like, that's actually my family. Like, we can't even, there's not even a chance.
It's like, there's no chance that we're together. We are blood related.
So awful. John disappeared from Belle's farm just a week later, mysteriously leaving his truck behind.
Then, of course, there was more. George Anderson from Tarico, Missouri. Once he arrived and sat for dinner, Belle brought up the idea of him paying off her mortgage as well. That same night, he was awoken in the middle of his sleep, startled to find Belle hovering over him with a candle and a dark look in her eye. In a panic, she ran out of the room. Leaving his belongings behind, George immediately fled her property and took the first train out. He was the only man that visited Belle's home from the ad that ever made his way out.
Over the course of 3 years, Belle's farm became a revolving door. Suitors arrived, charmed by Belle's letters and the promise of companionship, financial opportunity, and cultural familiarity. Because remember, she's doing this she's calculated, and she's doing this specifically in that American Norwegian newspaper.
Looking for Norwegian men who have immigrated
specifically
to America.
Mm-hmm. She even began explaining to some of the men that due to the influx of applicants, they would need to make $1,000 deposit to visit her. What is she?
I mean,
we're not trying to make light and like joke about this, because a lot of people did lose their lives at her hand.
And it's awful and horrific, but also she knew how to ask for money. She's like, there's a line of men looking for me and want me. So you need $1,000 to be considered.
I mean, you can't. She got game. She had game. And
honestly, I don't admire the killing part, but I wish that when I was in the dating pool, I had been like $1,000 and I will consider your advances.
And you would have people would have paid that.
Yeah. $1,000 and I'll consider having a date with you.
I mean, it's not too late to try. You're getting married in September.
I have a few months left. Belle's mailman claimed she wrote 8 to 10 letters a day and received just as many. The local delivery driver, Clyde Sturgis, recalls how Belle began ordering massive trunks to her home and how she would be able to hoist them over her back like, quote, a box of marshmallows without any help. Her windows remained shuttered day and night. Neighbors who passed by told stories of seeing Belle moving in the shadows of the hog pen, digging holes at all hours of the day.
Then came Old B. Budsberg, an aging widower from Iola, Wisconsin. In April of 1907, he was last seen at the LaPorte Savings Bank, calmly mortgaging his farm and withdrawing several $1,000s in cash. He had plans to visit Belle, but didn't want to tell his 2 sons. After finding the dozens of letters shared between Belle and their dad, his sons tracked him down and sent Belle a letter asking if they were together. But her response was cold. She claimed she had never seen their dad and knew nothing of his whereabouts, and he was never seen again.
Different farmhands over the years reported that Belle would refer to all the men who visited as her cousins. One of them revealed that her home had a room stacked with trunks and another room of men's clothing. Another was tasked with digging 3 holes, 6 feet long, 3 feet wide, and 4 feet deep, claiming it was to bury garbage.
Well, okay, so before we go on, because this is already mounting, there's a lot happening, a lot of different people coming and disappearing or staying forever on her farm, if you want to look at it that way. Like, why do you think that she got away with this for so long?
I would venture to guess that it's because she's a woman and a mother, and she feels like a very unlikely person. I think that even though neighbors are suspicious, it would probably feel really hard to accuse someone of something like that, especially like this mom who has children is like killing all these men. It would feel like probably a little ridiculous to other ears to say it. But I also think that another reason would probably just be lack of communication.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're not texting people. You're not taking videos of what's going on. You're not calling local law enforcement. You know, I think that there's probably maybe even a lack of communication between neighbors of like multiple people noticing this trend that's happening as well.
Yeah, so kind of just like the time in which this was taking place had a big role in what she got away with and for how long. And I mean, she was a busy girl. 8 to 10 letters a day? Putting pen to paper?
It's a full-time job.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. And she's bringing these guys in pretty often. And for her farmhands to be like, all of the men who visited were her cousins. It's like, how many cousins is she introducing around? Yeah. And then people are noticing things. But I think it's hard to immediately go to the worst. Like if someone asked me to dig a hole and they told me it was for garbage and I was working on their property, I'd be like, please don't throw out your garbage that way on your property. But also,
I mean, but that was
I wouldn't think anything.
That was
it.
how.
Right. That was the way then.
Yeah. So again, it's like it could go either way. But I don't know, if you're living and working there and you're seeing these comings and goings and how she operates and what she's doing more intimately than maybe just a neighbor who, this isn't your neighbor that like mine. I can look out the window right now and see into their windows. Like she's on a 48-acre farm. Like this isn't someone that just has very close proximity neighbors. These are just people that happened, if they're around at the right time, we'll see things coming and going. But these people are like living and working on her farm and doing things on her behest. So I don't know.
She's also employing them.
Yeah, that's true.
What do you say when you need money to support your family?
Well, speaking of her employees, in 1907, Belle employed Ray Lamphere, a, quote, curly-headed 30-year-old odd-job carpenter who she hired as her newest farmhand to help complete chores around the property. Allegedly, he wasn't very smart, didn't have a lot of money, and was an alcoholic, but he was happy to work and settled into Belle's spare room. It wasn't long before he started to grow feelings for her and resentment toward her lovers. Simultaneously, Belle began conversing with Andrew Helglian, her next victim from South Dakota. One of the alleged letters dated January 13th, 1908 was later found at the Helglian farm. It read, quote, "To the dearest friend in the world, no woman in the world is happier than I am. I know that you are now to come to me and be my own. I can tell from your letters that you are the man I want. It does not take one long to like a person, and you I like better than anyone in the world I know. Think how we will enjoy each other's company. You, the sweetest man in the whole world. We will be all alone with each other. Can you conceive of anything nicer? I think of you constantly when I hear your name mentioned, and this is when one of the dear children speaks of you, or I hear myself humming it with the words of an old love song. It is beautiful music to my ears. My heart beats in wild rapture for you, my Andrew. I love you. Come prepared to stay forever." And it's important to note, some critics believe this was written or altered by reporters at the time to sensationalize the story. But on the other side of that coin, it explains a lot as to why so many men were so eager to come to her. And I mean, she is like a siren luring. If I got a letter like this,
I'm a sucker for a good love letter.
God.
And that is...
Tell me all the ways in which you love me.
And what our future can look like together and this profound love that we can share.
Like, what? Hold on. Where does it say? It's like, think of how we will enjoy each other's company. Like, can you conceive of anything nicer than being alone with one another? It's like, oh my God.
It's like, I think of you constantly when I hear your name mentioned, and this is the one of my dear children. It's just like, if someone wrote that to me, okay, sure, we can be.
I don't know. This one line would get me every time. So I guess whoever is wanting to date me, pay attention.
Just DM me with a
DM me.
My heartbeat.
My heart beats in wild rapture for you.
I knew that was the one you were picking.
Like, what? Oh my God. Tell me more.
No one has ever texted me that or written it on paper.
Okay, writing on paper it doesn't get better. I love the postal service. I love a good note.
Me too.
But a text would do of that.
I want to text Al right now and be like, does your heart beat in wild rapture for me?
If not, are you doing it?
I'm going to text him, and if he responds during this episode, I'll read it aloud.
Okay, perfect.
We'll see if he responds. He's working, and we'll probably be like, leave me alone. Anyway, this letter gets him, as it would us all, and he moves to Belle's farm after withdrawing $2,900 from his savings, which is approximately $99,000 today. She got him.
She got him good.
Together, they deposited the check. Around the same time, Belle either told Ray that he needed to move out or he quit. Belle was planning to marry Andrew, and Ray was growing increasingly jealous. However, the truth was, Ray knew Belle's secrets, and she needed to do damage control. So she went to the courthouse and fabricated a story that he was mentally unwell and a threat to her and society. A sanity hearing was held, but Ray was declared sane and released.
Ray continued to appear at Belle's home, sometimes making veiled threats. He once told a local farmer, quote, "Helglian won't bother me no more. We fixed him for keeps." Days later, Belle reported to the sheriff that Ray had trespassed on her farm and threatened her, which led to his arrest. And during this time, Andrew also disappeared.
Another one bites the dust. Also, Ray is ballsy to be making these threats when he knows what she's doing.
Yeah. And again, it kind of goes to like, what is Belle doing because clearly it's not just she has a way with words. It's she has a way about her, some sort of charisma, or I don't know what it is, because she's not charming Ray with letters. They're in person. Mm-hmm. So is it like she's also saying things to him or giving him, I don't think Ray just thought all of this out of nowhere, especially given her track record. Like,
oh, I'm sure she was leading him on in
definitely.
Some way.
Clorox Sentiva smells like lavender. Cleans like Clorox. And feels like...
All right.
right, that could go on for a while. Experience the long-lasting freshness of Clorox Scentiva, available in Clorox Scentiva lavender-scented bleach. Use as directed.
The rural way of life is about making everyone feel at home. Tractor Supply chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to transform intelligent customer service. Together, we put the power of AI to work across 2,200 stores, keeping things running seamlessly inside, curbside, and countryside. This is elevated customer experience. This is Tractor Supply with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
By 1908, Andrew's brother Asla had allegedly discovered 80 letters between the two lovers. In many of the letters, Belle requested that Andrew sell his property and sew the cash into his underwear, being clear not to tell anyone. So Asla wrote to Belle and demanded to know where his brother was. Belle told Asla that she didn't know, insisting that it was nothing serious between them and that she was just a pit stop while he was traveling. Who's going to believe that when you have 80 letters and you're telling him to sell his property and hide it and not tell anyone of your meeting?
There's legit a paper trail.
Like, it wasn't serious. Asla insisted that he visit LaPorte and search the premises himself, to which Belle responded that he wouldn't find Andrew, but she would be happy to help him for a fee. Still trying to cash in on money. Of course, his visit was postponed with that response.
Knowing there was growing suspicions towards her, Belle took additional steps to protect herself. She told a local lawyer that she feared Ray may attempt to kill her and burn her house down, and requested to draw up a will. She left everything to her children and paid off her farm's mortgage.
I want to pause for a second because I'm just so curious of her relationship with Ray. And clearly she's manipulated him in some way, but also she kind of finds him as a threat. It's pretty obvious. Mm-hmm. Why do you think she hasn't tried to kill him?
I don't know. I think it's because he probably has something on her, or maybe she's afraid of him, or there's something that's stopping her from harming him, because clearly she doesn't have an issue doing it with other men.
I almost wonder if she just didn't have the opportunity because he knows what she's doing.
Right. He knows the ins and her methods and her ways. So he almost has like a one-up on her.
Yeah. He knows not to be sleeping in her house or drink something that she gives him. Maybe she was trying, but it just wasn't working.
Which I can totally see happening.
Same. On the night of April 27th, 1908, Belle's new farmhand, Joe Maxon, awoke to their home filled with smoke. Flames were already spreading, and when his calls to Belle and the children went unanswered, he jumped from a second-story window and ran for help. By the time firefighters arrived, the house was in ruins.
And let's just also keep in mind, this is 1 month after she went to that attorney and was like, hey, I need a will, and I think that somebody's going to try and kill me and burn my house down.
Right.
So just keep the timeline.
And 1 month later, her house burns down.
And inside of her burnt down house, authorities found 4 bodies, 3 children, and to their shock, a headless woman.
The children who she left everything to.
Yes. The woman's body was dressed in Belle's night clothes and initially was assumed to be her. However, something didn't quite sit right. The body was unusually small, shorter, and significantly slimmer than Belle's, who had been known to stand nearly 5'9" and weigh over 200 pounds. Yet there was no head to confirm their identity. Local authorities hesitated to declare Belle dead, and suspicion grew. The woman's internal organs also revealed lethal amounts of, say it with me, strychnine.
Strychnine. Her MO. Her MO.
Mm-hmm.
And why would she be decapitated in a fire?
Unless somebody killed her, decapitated her, and then set the fire to
like
conceal
she
evidence.
alluded was about to happen.
Yeah.
Belle's dentist, Dr. Pierre Norton, chimed in. He said if they could find her teeth, he would be able to identify them if they were hers based on some gold bridge work that he had done. Mysteriously, after he had announced that, her teeth were discovered, and Dr. Norton confirmed they belonged to Belle, and the coroner ruled her as dead. To make matters worse, a witness claimed he saw Ray fleeing the property on the night of the fire.
The case against Ray centered on the motive that he was jealous and deeply angry after being cast aside for wealthier suitors. This matched up with the alibi Belle had been creating before she disappeared. But let's not forget about Asla Helglian, who had a trip planned to Belle's farm, the one that was postponed earlier because she was demanding money. After hearing about the fire, he arrived in search of his brother and insisted that something more sinister was going on. Then Joe Maxson came forward with some chilling information. He revealed that Belle had recently instructed him to bring wheelbarrows of dirt to the hog pen, claiming they needed to level out the ground where holes had been filled with garbage, and this prompted investigators to start digging.
On May 3rd, they unearthed the body of Jenny Olson, Belle's adopted daughter who she had claimed was living in Los Angeles. Soon after, they found the remains of Andrew Helglian and several other victims. More bodies followed, all buried in shallow graves. Some were mere bones. Others were wrapped in oilcloth or burlap sacks. The horrifying discovery of bodies confirmed what many feared. Belle Gunness was not a grieving widow, but a calculating murderer.
The story hit local newspapers, with reporters dubbing Belle as the Mistress of Murder Hill and Lady Bluebeard, based on a murderous folktale. While searching her property, investigators found cutting instruments and pages from a text on anatomy. These discoveries raised new questions. Was Belle truly dead, or had she faked her own death and vanished?
The latter, I think. And Ray's defense attorney leaned heavily on this uncertainty. They suggested that Belle herself had staged the fire to escape justice and use the body of another woman. Joe Maxson and another witness came forward to say that they had seen Klondike Schultz, a dentist's assistant or acquaintance of Dr. Norton, plant the gold bridge work that was confirmed to be Belle's right before it was discovered. The courts conducted a fire test on another set of teeth and bridge work, backing this claim by saying that if they had been in the fire, the evidence would have melted and become distorted. Others came forward and claimed that they had seen Belle alive after the fire, including a local farmer who swore he'd spoken to her on a train platform.
But the prosecution painted Ray as an accomplice. They theorized that he had helped Belle lure victims and dispose of bodies. When their relationship soured, Belle feared he would expose her. In turn, Ray set the fire either as revenge or as a part of a final grisly pact. In November 1908, after a dramatic trial filled with gruesome testimony and national media attention, Ray was convicted of arson but acquitted of murder, largely because the prosecution couldn't prove he had directly committed or assisted in any killings. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison at the Indiana State Prison in Michigan City. Less than 2 years later, in December of 1909, he died of tuberculosis.
But before his death, Ray made a confession to a prison minister. He admitted that Belle had not died in the fire. According to Ray's claims, she had orchestrated the entire thing, murdered a woman who resembled her, decapitated the body, and staged the fire herself. Then she vanished. Ray was an accomplice in helping her with the fire and also disposed of at least 3 bodies, but insisted he had no part in the murders themselves.
It was estimated that Belle murdered at least 14 people, but some believe the total could be as high as 40 or more, as many victims were never identified. After luring men to her farm, Belle is believed to have murdered them using poison, most often strychnine, before dismembering their bodies. The evidence speaks for itself in the remains that were buried across her farm with lethal levels of toxins found in the bodies.
As for Belle herself, her fate remains one of America's most chilling mysteries. Some believe she died in the fire. Others insist she faked her death and escaped. One theory suggests she took her own life to evade justice, but a professor of forensic psychology and expert in serial killers finds that unlikely. She described Belle as an accomplished psychopath, a type not prone to surrender even in the face of exposure. To this day, no one knows for certain where Belle is. What is clear, however, is that her legacy lives on, not as a widow or a mother, but as one of the most terrifying women in American true crime lore.
So what's our thoughts here? Is Belle dead? I mean, Belle's obviously dead, unless she's the longest living person in history. But do you think she staged that whole thing and faked her own death, or do you think that was truly her that was decapitated?
I don't think that was her. I think that she has been so strategic and meticulous in everything that she's done. I think that the confession where Ray helped her was true in the end, where he helped her escape. And we already know she's not above killing her children. And the fact that she would leave everything to her children and if anything ever happened to her, I think was just another cherry on top of her plans to make herself seem like she had been killed. And I think when she made that arrangement, she knew that day she was going to kill her children.
Yeah, all premeditated. She had a plan formalized before anything. I mean, it is so, looking at it, you know, in hindsight, with all the information now that we have, especially laid out in this way, it seems almost obvious that that is the only answer.
And imagine the amount of cash she had on her.
Well, okay, what I'm confused about, and maybe I'm just missing something, but if they believed she was dead, she's not going to get that payout.
Not that payout, but
all the others.
All the others. And she has probably stacks of cash in her house from all of these other ones. So I think like that last insurance policy, like give everything out and stuff, I think that was a show to make it seem like she was so concerned about her death and she was never going to get that money, but she's been saving enough where she was like, okay, I can go.
She was still all set. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be curious if there's like a woman in another country somewhere around the world that has a very similar story of murdering men and collecting
that
money.
kind of picks up where this one left off. Yeah. I mean,
because I can't imagine she found a different way to make money unless she was just, unless she had enough money saved to last her the rest of her life.
But I think also there's something to be said about you're the psychology major, so maybe you can tell me, but I don't think that someone just gives that up as far as like, I'm set now. I mean, the amount of money that she was getting, even just from individual people, she could have stopped and she chose not to.
Yeah.
So I don't think that if she did fake her death and start over somewhere new, that this is something that she would have discontinued and been like, oh, well, I'm good now and I'm set, so I'm going to just do something else and just give up a life of crime and murder. I think there's something there that, especially the power that she probably felt over men and being able to manipulate and control them either with her words, her sexuality, her whatever she was doing. I think that was addictive for her. And the money was a great bonus and it maybe was the incentive to begin with. But I don't think that was the only thing that was involved.
I agree with you 100%. I think that she was getting something from these acts themselves. I think that she enjoyed it almost feels like a hunt and a lure of these men where she had the letters and the flirtation and she had like this whole, it was almost a routine, it feels like, for each of these men. And I think that she had it calculated and I think that she probably enjoyed what she was doing.
Yep. And kind of, I have two random thoughts that don't really fit neatly into the end of this, but I've just kind of been like, The first is with her hog farm. I would have bet everything she was feeding the bodies to the pigs. I thought she was dismembering them and feeding them and not burying their entire bodies on the property.
Yeah. But I kind of wonder, I agree, because I was like, wait, you have a hog farm and you're burying them and you still have all the evidence. But then I was thinking if she has a hog farm and she's selling these pigs to be consumed, maybe she didn't like the idea of.
Oh, that's where her morality comes. That's when she's like,
that's where maybe her morality. She's like, ew.
Well, okay.
I won't make my neighbors eat pigs that eat people.
Okay.
That's my only thought with that. I can't.
That's fine. I mean,
I can't say. Or she just genuinely didn't know that a pig would eat it.
I don't know, for a farmer, especially growing up on farms and being like a servant on farms.
Yeah, she probably knew.
Pigs eat everything. Everyone knows. I even know that. I've never even owned a pig. But also she did other questionable things like keeping men's belongings that she claims she didn't know. It's like, I don't know where he went, or I don't even know who that is. And yet his truck is here, or his trunk and all his belongings are there. It's just, so I don't know. Okay. And the other thing is, which is going back to the very beginning, like the intro, and obviously she's definitely swindling and stuff, but have you ever been catfished?
It's so funny you asked me that because I was going to ask you that.
Okay, well, you go first because I asked first.
I don't think I've ever been like truly catfished. I've definitely had people pretend to be like something a little bit different than they are along that lines. Al and I joke that I catfished him a little bit.
Oh.
But not true, not from like what I look like or anything. But when we first started talking before we had met, he was like really big into like riding motorcycles and snowboarding and stuff. And I wanted him to think I was cool. So he's like, oh yeah, do you ride powder and like ride big stuff and go in the backcountry? And I was like, yeah, totally. And I couldn't even turn on my snowboard yet. So we joke that I catfished him slightly because I told him I was really good at all these sports that I was mediocre at.
But you're getting better. So
I'm pretty decent at them now. Like I would call myself a pretty good snowboarder.
You've put in the work.
I've put in the work. You just had to wait 7 years.
That's fine.
It's worth it. I just had to make him like me first.
Right.
Have you ever been catfished?
No, I haven't. I think that I've definitely kind of same thing. Like maybe I've had people emphasize certain things or exaggerate or kind of like fib about certain things about themselves or their abilities or whatever, but they've never been like a full-on true catfish type of situation. But then again, to be fair, I haven't really found myself in those situations. Like I don't online date. I've only online dated once for legit like 2 days. And I got into a relationship with the first person like I matched with. I didn't know how online dating worked. I was just like, oh, okay, we matched and now we must be together.
Like we are together now.
So, yeah. So I guess I haven't really been in that position. So, I'm not saying like I'm immune to it or I've just been lucky. I just legitimately haven't really been in that space.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I would say I do like when I've seen the TV show Catfish and stuff and how people get catfish, I can totally see how it happens, especially now with just social media and just the internet. I think it's easier probably.
See, I think it's now harder. Like in the beginning, especially with that show, like in the kind of dawn of online dating and the internet and making fake profiles or like doing all of the things that a typical catfish would do, I think it was super easy. But then now, like fast forward a decade or so, I think it's difficult to be a catfish because there are so many ways for people to find out either number one, your true identity, or number two, that you're blatantly lying and something's fake.
That's a good point too. And they do make you, I think that apps and stuff, they try to negate that by having you have to link your Facebook profile and having to have a real phone number and stuff like that. So there are some stuff that's trying to shield people from being catfished.
Totally. Well, hopefully we don't ever have any more Belles, whether they're female or male, because we did laugh a little bit in this episode. But again, these are a lot of people who were killed and lost their lives, and there's clearly people who cared about them, brothers, family members, that were trying to find out what happened to them and search for them and find justice for them. And you know, even though Belle didn't, that we are aware of, didn't really get to pay the price for what she did, maybe, I mean, karma came out and who knows what happened to her.
And I think something that makes her story and what she was doing a bit more sad is that a lot of these men that were looking for love and true connection and were writing letters back and forth with her, and she offered all these promises, and instead she stole their money and ended their lives, and which was pretty much exactly the opposite of what they were coming for. You know, they were coming for family, and in a time where they weren't surrounded by other people from Norway, they thought that they were connecting with someone who shared the same background as them. It's just, she was really manipulative, and a lot of people lost their lives. And like you said, upwards of maybe 40 people.
Yeah, that's an insane amount of people.
That's that on that.
That's that on that. It's my favorite way to end things.
Thank you for tuning in to Watch Her Cook.
If you're looking to dive a little bit deeper into Belle's story, we've dropped some sources for you in the description. Let us know what incredible women's stories you'd like to hear next.
And a big shout out to Sick Bird Productions, who produces our podcast and helps bring these stories to life. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Watch Her Cook Podcast, leave a review, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Just a reminder, empowered women empower the world. Now let's go cook. See you next Wednesday.